One of the most powerful features of Experts Directory is its ability to help you manage all of your scholarly and creative works. Adding your scholarship to your profile is a great way to show the impact you're having in your field, visualize your collaborations with other researchers, and see how your work is connected to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's much more than a static page with publications listed in alphabetical order. Instead, your Experts Directory profile becomes a dynamic repository where your publications can be organized and sorted and viewed. Experts Directory uses services like ORCID, Scopus, PubMed, Dimensions, and more to help you locate your publications and add them to your profile. But first, you'll need to specify some parameters for how these services search for you among their vast collections. To get started, log in by going to expertsdirectory.okstate.edu. Click the OSU login button and enter your OKey credentials. Then navigate to the three-line menu on the top left corner of your screen. Click that and then look for the column that says Settings. Then click Name-Based Search. Before we get too far, let's take a step back and look at how services like ORCID, Scopus, and Dimensions work and how they're connected to Experts Directory. These services contain vast databases of scholarly publications, and they're entirely separate from Experts Directory. They're also entirely separate from individual academic journals. But the three systems all work together behind the scenes to help connect publications to their authors. For example, let's say you publish an article in the journal Nature. Nature is not connected to Experts Directory, but it is indexed by large databases like Scopus and Dimensions. These databases are continually being updated with information about new publications. So, shortly after your article is published in Nature, Scopus and Dimensions know about it and add your article's information and metadata to their indexes. This is where Experts Directory comes in. Once your article is added to Scopus and Dimensions and others, Experts Directory then crawls through their databases to find publications that match the search criteria you specify for your own name. When Experts Directory finds a match to your article in Nature, it adds that article to your pending queue, which you can then claim and add to your Experts Directory profile. But in order to get this to work, you have to tell Experts Directory how you want it to search for your name when it looks through these databases. And that happens on this screen right here. Some people have common first and last names, and others might have changed their names at various points in their lives. You might publish under a different, more formal name than what you're known as to family and friends. So how can ORCID, Scopus, and Dimensions, PubMed, how can they connect publications to you if your name doesn't exactly match the name or names in their databases? You can solve this by using the tools you see here. Status shows when Dimensions, ORCID, and Scopus performed the most recent searches of their databases and indexes to see if they have a record of any new publications that belong to you, such as the example we discussed earlier of an article you might have published in Nature. This is more for your information, and there's not much you can do here, so scroll down to Name-Based Searches. This is where you can enter variations on your name that Dimensions and Scopus and PubMed can use when they search for publications that belong to you. You can use the text entry box to add all combinations of your last name and initials under which you publish. The system will then convert the name you supply to the exact formats required when searching each data source. While you have a great deal of flexibility here, there are some parameters that you need to abide by. Always enter your last name first, then a comma, then your first name or initials. For example, if your name is Andrew Smith, you might enter Smith, Andrew. Then click the green plus button. Then you could enter Smith, A, and click the plus button. You might also publish under the name Andy, in which case you would enter a third name variation of Smith, Andy. The names you enter here are automatically formatted into search strings and sent out to Dimensions, ORCID, and Scopus, and others so they can start to match their huge indexes of publications and suggest relevant ones to you that match your name. There's a balancing act to all this that's important to keep in mind. Remember that when these third-party services find articles in their databases that belong to you, they're added to your pending queue in Experts Directory for you to claim. If you end up with hundreds of articles in your queue, your name scope is probably a bit too wide and you might want to be a little more specific. However, if you narrow your parameters too much, then Scopus, Dimensions, and others might not find matches to you in their databases. When you're done entering name variants, scroll down to addresses. Since you work at Oklahoma State University, the system automatically associates publications with this institution by default. However, if you've worked or published at other institutions prior to arriving at OSU, enter the names of those institutions here. The additional search terms section allows you to exactly specify additional supplementary information to narrow the search results returned by name-based searches. Providing information in this section will cause you to only receive results published after the provided start date, which have the supplied keywords and which were published in one of the provided journals. Enter your start date in one of the formats listed below the text entry box. There are a couple of other fields on the page like keywords, journals, article IDs, and some checkboxes at the bottom, but honestly, you can just skip all of that. Experts Directory doesn't need that information when connecting with these third-party services, so you can just leave those fields blank and let the checkboxes stay at their default values. When you're all done, click Save at the bottom of the page. You can return to this page at any time to change the information you entered, so don't worry about making a mistake or not filling everything out completely. You can always come back later. These first steps with setting up your name-based search settings only take a few minutes, but will go a long way towards helping you populate your Experts Directory profile with all of your scholarly and creative works.